The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, has declared that the union will not be intimidated by external pressures after he was interrogated by the police over allegations of terrorism financing, cybercrime and treasonable felony. Ajaero, accompanied by prominent human rights lawyer Femi Falana and Deji Adeyanju, described the allegations as baseless and said the NLC remains committed to defending workers' rights.
Solidarity forever. Comrades, I want to thank every one of you. Thank all comrades in the states that are in various state commands that are praying that those that have been fasting since morning can break their fast now. Comrades, the labor movement is worth dying for because of the patriotism and commitment. Labor movement is one of the biggest pan-Nigerian organizations. Our patriotism from the days of colonial government to even the period of the military is unshakable. We are more patriotic than any other institution you can think of in this country. And we are going to continue to be that.
Ajaero's appearance at the police headquarters was in response to an invitation which he initially missed due to unforeseen circumstances. The Daily Post source revealed that the interrogation was a friendly interaction as Ajaero was summoned to find out about one of the protesters who was one of the tenants of Labour House. Joining us is managing partner, Paradigm Solicitors and Advocates, Oloyede Oyediran. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Isn't it quite interesting, you know, the display that had to happen because Ajaero was invited by the police, and you know, Labour was really on standby. Some places there were procession that was being held in solidarity just in case they decided to hold him. So what do you make of this whole situation between the Nigeria police and Labour, even maybe going back to how it all began with the police visiting Labour House, raiding a floor on Labour House, and you know how they've carried out their activities so far?
Okay, let me take it the way you started and end the way you ended. It is expected that labor union, labor leaders will react that way by which they have reacted. It's a show of solidarity for the leadership of the labor union in Nigeria. So when labor leaders across Nigeria were making moves saying they want to protect the leader, protect Ajaero, protect the institution, it was proper, it's fine. I see it as a show of solidarity versus show of solidarity on the police side. So let's go back to how it started. You see, before the invitation, there was what some of us describe as a raid on the NLC headquarters. First, people will think, why would the police come at that hour when they went there? Good enough, we've been able to get an answer from the police that come. We are looking for somebody who is wanted, not just in Nigeria, but as a terrorist suspect or a terrorist financier who has been so, not only in Nigeria, but in other countries. The Interpol has declared him to be so, and so they had the information that he was in that building because he's a tenant of that building. And so for me, I listened carefully to the critics of that act by the police. I was waiting for one thing. Was there a search warrant by which the police entered into the premises? I didn't get that answer to be in the affirmative. So I presume that there must have been a warrant by which the police has attempted to search the premises. If there was, then I would say that it's within the rights and the powers of the police to enter a premises and conduct a search.
That's if there was.
If there was.
Yeah.
And I had said earlier that I want to presume that there was, because who issues a warrant? A magistrate, a judge of the High Court. It wouldn't have been so difficult for the police to approach a magistrate High Court for a warrant to search that premises. And so, let me add that if the search was backed up by a warrant, it was proper for the police to have done it. And the law on warrant and searches gives the police a stronger power to extend the purpose of the search beyond that which is listed in the warrant to the discovery of any other document that the police considers necessary and useful for the investigation for which the warrant was issued. So the police is entitled to say, the warrant we have to search these premises entitles us to look for A, B, C document. But when we got there, we discovered D, E, F documents which are relevant to our search. And so we decided to take it along for proper investigation. So again, I say that that was proper for the police to have done. So then again, the police has failed to disclose the purpose, how do I put it, the particulars of the person. Is a disclosure, is a failure of disclosure by a public officer. But you see, because we have not had anybody who has utilized the Freedom of Information Act to make this request for this information from the police and get a court order compelling the police to disclose what is the particulars, what are the details around this person who we are looking for, then we cannot yet say that the police has failed to disclose. Then again, even if there has been a request for a public information from the police, which is a public officer, don't forget that even the Freedom of Information Act makes provision for the refuser to disclose if that disclosure would affect international security, national security, will compromise vital security of Nigeria. Yes, it was expected, it was proper for the police to have thought that the person we are looking for will land is a tenant of the labor house. If the person is a tenant of the labor house, the landlord, which is the labor union itself, is expected to have the details of the tenant. So if you are looking for my tenant, the laws, different laws in Nigeria, let me use the one on disclosure of public information, for example, says that if you are in a business, you should have the information about your customers. Our banks will come to us and say, we are doing KYC, know your customer. They want to know where you live. If the address you gave to them is actually correct, it's actually where you can be looked for. So it was expected that the labor, the NLC, has done that. It's a due diligence, which was supposed to have been done on their customer, on their tenant who was coming in to take a property from them. So the police will now be right to demand such information from the landlord about the tenant. So again, I say that that was proper on the part of the police.
Yeah,
it's a show of
I think because we need to take as many questions as we can with the time that we have.
Okay.
I think, of course, the things that are still not clear. The police did mention in the news report, that the police went into the night raid with proper legal backing, which I'm going to assume means that they had a warrant. But I don't know if that covers the NLC's office itself. If they went, on the night raid to pick up a suspect that they had been tracing or tracking, whatnot. I don't know if that search warrant covers the entire building and everything that is in there, or just, you know, where the person was, you know. So those are questions that should be answered, you know, over time. What has happened also, you know, and I did mention this, you know, with our previous guest, that the reaction to the invitation by the police, because, you know, it's pretty interesting, moving from, we went to, you know, to raid a particular suspect, to the NLC president being charged with, you know, terrorism and cyber, you know, all sorts of treasonable felony and whatnot. It's quite a lot, you know, and people have said that this might be, you know, tactics to intimidate Joe Ajaero, intimidate the NLC. So do you, you know, see some credibility in those claims so far?
Is either of the two ways. The problem we have in Nigeria generally is trust. If the police or any government agency or any government officer takes a step, we are not always sure of the motive behind the action. And that's why those who are saying that the move is targeted at silencing the labor may be right to an extent. But you see, as I always say, we shouldn't be quick at such conclusions. We have to wait for the outcome. It's unfortunate that the outcome of most of these investigations are never made public.
Yeah.
And so people are on the guard. People are prepared to say that, well, we know that nothing is going to come out. If it has been in a proper terrain where after this investigation, reports will come out to say that we went to look for ABC. We did not find ABC, but we found DEF. DEF eventually became very useful for our investigation, and this is the result. We would not have had that problem. People would not be agitated. People would not be crying.
It's obviously a long history of lack of clarity from Nigerian government,
yes,
you know, and of course, you know, its representatives on, in every aspect. And, you know, I did speak about, you know, the lack of trust in the criminal justice system, because if it was a simple invitation where Joe Ajaero simply has to show up, you know, hear the charges that have, you know, been read, you know, against him, apply for bail, he's granted bail, he goes home to prepare his, you know, with his legal team, nobody, you know, has any issues with it. You know, but because of the complete lack of trust, and because we've seen that there have been times when people have been arrested, they're kept beyond 48 hours that the criminal justice system, you know, provides. They're kept there for weeks. The police continues to, you know, renew, you know, legal requests to keep them, you know, much beyond, you know, the expected time. That's the simple reason why. It's not the Nigerian citizens' fault for having that trust deficit. It's the fault of the Nigerian government and how it's handled its affairs.
Then, the responsibility is that of all of us to start making the desired change. I have had a terrible situation of where a client of mine refused to play games with the police and was charged with an offense and was arraigned overnight at a time when he would not even have the opportunity of going home. And you know, the way our prisons are, if you are remanded for a few hours, for an hour in that prison, you would never wish it for your enemy. So just as you have said, if the issue had been proper, the legal system, the criminal justice system is fine. You are arraigned. You anticipate no fear as to whether or not this arraignment is going to turn positive or negative against me. If I'm arraigned, I will go, prefer an answer to the charge, prepare my defense, do the defense, and I will be left out of the hook. But there is another angle to that. In Nigeria, somebody has said that somebody must be guilty of something. It may not be that which you are charged. But there will always
be something to
But there will always be something.
With,
if you are invited now, I mean, the police officers, the investigative officers will start by telling you to do your biodata, your history, when your mother was born, when your father was married to him and all that, so as to be able to identify one thing which you have not been doing well, or you have not done well, and they will latch on that and say, okay, this is the issue. So it's the same thing.
All right. We unfortunately out of time. Oluyede Oyedinro, I truly enjoyed, hearing you, break down your perspective on these things. A lot of Nigerians are very, very upset, with the way things have turned out. But I think you've been able to explain properly. Thank you very much for stopping by.
It's my pleasure.
Good to have you.
Thank you very much too.